It just happens.
You naturally, like, it be a chemistry, it'd be some natural shit that be happening where you're not necessarily thinking. And the reason you're not thinking is because this person has turned off your radar from evaluating him as a husband in the moment. Like, this person, I'm not evaluating this person as a potential husband. Maybe I'm a little lonely. Maybe I just got over a breakup. Maybe I just need to de-stress. Maybe I just want somebody to go to the movies with. So now you don't even have to really look for his red flags because you're not like, I mean, we just cool. And then
Well, I'm here to tell you, listen, the reason why you're in a situationship right now and you're watching this video is because you have what we call an attachment style. I'm going to tell it now. The attachment style usually is the reason why you are falling into this situationship with this person where you turned off your brain and you ignored all those red flags. Okay. Now, if you don't know about attachment styles, simply what that means is the way that we emotionally bond in relationships. It's the things that, the way that we deal with relationships emotionally. It is also something that was based around an experiment by John Bowlby, a British psychologist who was studying how separation anxiety affects young children and then looking at how that affects them as adults. Your separation anxiety is causing you to now want to choose a situationship. And what is a situationship, by the way? Situationship is literally usually a sexual relationship, which is undefined. Okay. You guys have not put a label in it. You haven't put no title on it. You're just kind of free flowing, going with the flow. All right. It's called the gray area. All right. And so when you combine those two things, the gray area plus attachment styles, what do you get? Well, you get this situation that you're in right now. I mean, I wasn't going to answer that for you. I think you should know that. But let me break down quickly what attachment styles is. Before I do, like, share, subscribe, click on that wonderful bell button for notifications of the uploads. And we're going to get helping you guys grow, transform, and heal in this particular video. Let's answer this. The reason why you are in a situationship is because you're in a particular attachment style. So again, attachment styles are simply the way that we emotionally bond in relationships. It is born out of our separation anxiety. There are 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, fearful, avoidant. Secure people tend to not be in situationships because they have a good relationship with boundaries. They have a good relationship with their values. They have a good relationship with saying what their wants and needs are. They're able to articulate themselves in very stressful or difficult scenarios and situations. They're emotionally regulated, and they can operate in stressful times. So let's take them out the window, because usually it isn't secure people that are finding themselves in these situations. No, it's the other 3. So let me quickly break them down. We got anxious people. Anxious people are born in households where the parents were inconsistent with their love. Maybe you had a parent that was, that was present, but they would work away a lot, or the parent that was overly critical, or the parent that was overly controlling. Right? You grew up in a house in which you felt there was love, but there was just something always a little bit missing. And those people who are anxious tend to want to try and earn love. They're always in a space of servitude. They're always in a space of overgiving. And so anxious people can fall into situationships quite easily. Here's how they're going to fall into a situationship. The reality of it is that anxious people want to be loved. They want to be, taken care of. They want to be appreciated, okay? And their biggest thing is they've got to earn it. And so a situationship is actually a really good place for them to be, because it means they can earn the relationship. If they can make you get into a relationship, they've earned your affection, your trust, your love. That's going to make them feel good. They're now rewriting history of what they didn't get as a young individual. Okay. So because also anxious people are quite fantastical in the sense of they love a little bit of a fantasy, they have high hopes where they put more trust in other people than they put trust in themselves. What ends up happening is a situationship is a great breeding ground for them to be hopeful that this will turn into a relationship, right? And then they ignore red flags because anxious people say yes to things before they've actually had a real thought about the actual thing. So red flags and ambiguity, yeah, of course, I'm gonna ignore that because I'm gonna say yes without really thinking about it. Also, you have to think, anxious people's core wound is abandonment. That's their separation anxiety. For them, if they get abandoned, that's what causes them to be triggered to want to cling even more. So if they're going to be afraid of abandonment, they're going to fall into a situationship. And if you're about to leave them, they're going to try even harder to make sure that they are the perfect partner for you so they can be in a relationship with you, right? And so they often read these signs of affection in an incorrect way. They read it as commitment rather than looking at it as the person's just being nice. All right. And so because of that, they will cling in that relationship no matter what. But let's talk about another particular attachment style, the dismissive avoidance. If you grew up in a household where your parents were maybe present, but not necessarily emotionally present, where they may have taken care of the bills and the food and the clothes on your back, You got your Xboxes, you got your dolls, you got all those things, you got the material wealth, but you never really had your parents. They never really were there for you emotionally. They never really were in tune with you. You couldn't come and tell them your day. You couldn't come and tell them that you were feeling emotional. They'll tell you to suck it up, get over it. There's no time for emotions. You can't cry. Or maybe you were parentified from when you were young. You were taught to be a third parent in your household, or a second parent if you've got a single male, right? Right. So you might have been a second parent or third. You were taught to immediately displace your needs and wants for other people. And so dismissive avoidant people tend to be afraid of emotional closeness. They don't want you to get too close to them. Because if you get too close to them, then they're afraid they're gonna lose their individuality and their identity. Because that's what actually happened when they were younger. They're like, I'm not going back there, right? I'm not gonna allow myself to be consumed by you. So then how does that make them want to fall into a situationship? Well, the perfect thing about that is there is no pressure in a situationship. In fact, the tolerance is very low and the expectation is low. The fear of being engulfed is very low because, again, you're not expecting me to have to be in a relationship with you, meaning there is no expectation of me having to be consistent in a relationship. In fact, the lack of consistency turns into consistency, which then becomes frequently, and now it becomes a relationship. But that's another story for another day. Okay. The avoidant people love situationships because it means they can be in connection without commitment, right? And I think a majority of men who are in the world dating this way are avoidants. And so actually, it's a beautiful breeding ground for them because there is no commitment, but there's connection. And usually, how dismissive avoidant people who are not very aware tend to kind of navigate relationships is through the arena of sex, because sex doesn't necessarily require the emotional connection as such from them. It is something that's pleasurable, it's nice, but it is still connection. It just isn't commitment. I don't have to commit to you after I've had sex with you. And so for them, a situationship is beautiful, right? And if they then start having to define the situationship, now pressure's coming in. Now I can disappoint you. Now I can erode the fantasy of me being a perfect person. Because you see, up until the point that you ask for commitment, the dismissive avoidant person seems like a perfect individual. Why? Because they have the freedom to go and come whenever they feel like. But relationships are not freedom to come and go as you ever feel like. No, they're not. Now, in the very beginning, you can, but when you begin to commit, that door is shut, and that sound scares them because it means that they're trapped. And it's one thing they all felt when they were younger: trapped, right? And so, for them personally, it's about not having to be vulnerable. And so, situationships are a breeding ground for not having to be vulnerable. I mean, you can be vulnerable, but you're not vulnerable because, in some sense, you're not committing, but you're still able to maybe share things that you never shared with anybody else with that particular person. Why? Because you're never going to have to care about them in that way, or so you thought. And you're never going to have to, love that person in that particular way, or so you thought. You're never going to have to be responsible for that person and their feelings in that particular way. All right. So it benefits a dismissive avoidant because, again, it's a no pressure situation with connection, no commitment. And then we have our final group, which is the fearful avoidance. Those people who grew up in households of chaos. They grew up in households where they were neglected, but they were in households where there was potentially abuse. They were in households where one of the parents, maybe, or two of the parents, were both the abuser and the comforter. They were the parents that were angry and verbally abusive, but at the same time they were loving and caring, right? At some points it was confusion, it was unpredictable, and there was maybe codependency. Maybe one of the dads or the moms was a narcissist or even an alcoholic, and so therefore the child grows up in this unstable, unpredictable environment. Maybe they had to be parentified early. You had to be a parent to your parents. In fact, your parents will share their emotions, and so you'd share something with your parents thinking that you could rely on them, and they would actually want you then to soothe them. Ah. And so you realize that you were never ever safe, you were never covered. And what that ends up doing is that it puts you in a place where you don't want the responsibility of being in a relationship with other people's feelings. But then you don't want that responsibility, but you also want to be loved. And so there's this dichotomy that happens for fearful avoidance where they have a hot and cold disposition. And Robert Greene would say they are coquettes. They are hot and cold, knowing how to seduce because they know how to get you in, but they fear that safety that is coming from the relationship that you might build is also the very thing that's going to also hurt them. Because the biggest fear of a fearful avoidant is being hurt. The biggest fear of a fearful avoidant is that they're not good enough. The biggest fear of a fearful avoidant is to be trapped. They're afraid of betrayal, abandonment, and rejection. And you can't betray me if there is no boundaries. You can't betray me if we haven't put a label on it. You can't betray me if we're not boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, because I don't care about you enough and we haven't established those things. You know, you're not going to reject me because I'm going to put my best foot forward. A fearful avoidant will put their best foot forward, just like a dismissive avoidant will do. They'll put their representative up so they can't be rejected. You're not going to reject them because they're so amazing at the beginning. They're just so understanding and welcoming and just loving. Like, who is this person, right? Ladies, you might call this love bombing. Call it what you want, right? And so they're not going to get rejected. Oh, but there can't be abandonment. No, no, no. We're not going to allow for abandonment because I'm not going to be here long enough for there to be abandonment. I'm going to be a black cat coming in and going out whenever I feel like. So you can't abandon me in something that I'm not being consistent with. And so the fearful avoidant can end up in a situationship because they crave that intimacy. They want that love, but they don't want the commitment per se to trap them. So situationship is perfect, just like this dismissive avoidant, right? And they are happy to oscillate between different partners or different people or one or two people, whatever, because again, what it does, it reduces the pressure and it reduces the expectation that they have to step up to the plate to be committed. So it allows them to emotionally withdraw and recharge and come back. And so situationships, while can be stable, can also be chaotic. It can also be unpredictable. And so that novelty, which is what fearful avoidance love, the novelty, the newness of something, right? It's what situationships offer all the time. They're not committed. They're brand new. You don't know what you might get today, what you might get tomorrow. And so fearful avoidance can be attracted to those situationships. So it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You've got attachment issues. And this is what we deal with in the coaching that I do all the time. We want to heal the root issues of those particular wounds. We have to go deep into the past and connect the dots between the past and the present to be able to establish the link so that you can know why you do what you do. And then that can begin to give you a change. Once you're aware of something, then you can begin to issue different behaviors that are going to bring you different outcomes. If you're not aware, you're probably going to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. So reach out to us if you're ready for healing. If you're ready for that growth and you're ready for that transformation in 2025, you're ready for it, reach out to us. There's a link down below in the description box. I would say to you guys, sign up for the 5, because when you hit those 5, we start going things, block by block by block, giving you the emotional language, emotional safety, dealing with being able to speak up, developing a voice, developing your wants and your needs. We tackle all those things as well. All right. So make sure you guys do me a massive favor. You are liking, you are sharing, you're subscribing, you're clicking on a wonderful bell button for notifications of the uploads. We appreciate you. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again soon.